One of the reasons or arguments behind wide-scale international cooperation is that certain conflicts, like the global financial crisis, could be dealt with on a more cooperative level, and there wouldn't be a lot of dispute and arguments over what to do about it. So, before I explain that, I'm going to explain what happened with the global financial crisis. So, in the United States, there was the 2008 stock market crash due to fraudulent funds in the housing market. So, our markets go down. And that's also due to the fact that we kept importing many goods from all over the world and borrowing a ton of money in order to buy them. When we didn't have the worth to back up the capital that we were using to purchase these goods, the stocks dropped dramatically. Now, because we were borrowing money in order to buy these goods, the assets and worth of the countries that we bought these from, such as China, because a lot of our imports came from China, their assets were tied up in US Treasury bills. Since we couldn't afford to pay them, their economy took a significant hit, because, and therefore, the economic problems spread to them. This is something called contagion, and it's basically an unfortunate byproduct of market instability, when world markets are so interconnected and dependent on one another, that even with different systems of currency, eventually the contagion leaks over when countries make international agreements and trade. China gets a lot of exports from Russia and Central Asia, such as clothing, food items, tangible goods, home furnishings and such. One of the provinces of Russia is Yakutia, and they make a lot of clothing and things that China purchases a lot. Since China took a significant market hit, and since their government is a single-party, unitary, communist state, they took control of the economy and made the decision to stop purchasing a lot of goods. So this trade that Russia was selling these products to China, since that stopped, Russia's economy didn't take a huge hit, but it took a minor one, and so they started to take a downturn as well because this got cut off, because China didn't have the resources to buy as much from Russia, and their market took a significant hit. One of the other areas that the United States purchased from was Europe, and Europe wasn't hit very hard at first, but it was assisted along by states that were a part of the European Union, specifically Ireland, Portugal, Spain, Italy, and Greece. Now, these states are interesting because they are democratic, but the government was able to act almost completely autonomous of the people. These governments didn't have the state capability to collect taxes adequately. It made the euro in these areas devalue very greatly. So, since a lot, and especially in Germany, a lot of the member states of the European Union implement the use of the euro, this made the economic contagion across the entire continent spread very rapidly. And it resulted in Germany having to bail Greece out recently. But one of the arguments behind using one currency across different sovereign states is that it can create a lot of economic contagion more quickly than having different currencies to different sovereign states. Well, it only prolongs the problem, and it doesn't come up with a long-term solution, which is the hopeful goal in establishing a world confederacy. Now, if one looks closely, one can see that the markets that didn't take a significant hit were that of the United Kingdom. And the reason that this is because the United Kingdom was making deals with Russia and storing a lot of its assets and bills in banks in Moscow, and making a lot of trade-offs. The United Kingdom is one of the only member states in the European Union that doesn't use the euro. Only 10 to 12 states within the European Union use the euro, and it was out of fear that certain states didn't implement its use because they were afraid that this very thing would happen. In this one circumstance, the United Kingdom was suspicious of the American market and the use of the euro and the very open trade, so they were right to keep their assets in a bank in another state that didn't implement the use of the euro. But, again, it only is a short-term solution to problems that are going to affect them more, because since they're a member state of the European Union and since they still trade with these other countries back and forth, the contagion is going to lead to them, and it hasn't yet, but their market is starting to take a downturn as well. But regardless of this, we can see that when one place takes a significant hit, it affects every place. One of the areas that this new World Confederation is going to try to address is economic policies that are inclusive of all areas of the world, that recognize the fact that all markets are interdependent on one another. And when you put multiple markets within the jurisdiction of one entity, it literally makes it too big to fail.